Schedule a free design consultation, and the more you buy, the more you'll save on blinds, shades, shutters, and more from Budget Blinds. Visit budgetblinds.com today.
Moses joins us on the desk for sports, and playoff hockey continues for Lloydminster Bobcats, looking for redemption.
Well, definitely, especially when the Cats are now entering at least a must-win territory, hostile territory, heading to Whitecourt, trying to grab home ice back after splitting the first 2 games with those Wolverines. And then we'll go to the highlights, but after a scoreless first period, things will pick up in the second. A loose puck in the high slot. It'll be Shane Schweitzer who snaps it home for his second of the postseason, 1-0 for the Orange and Black. Moments later, it will be Evan Schumi showing off a bit of skill, weaving around the Wolverine players. His shot from the left circle finds the back of the net. His first AJHL playoff goal, 2-0 for the Bobcats. But with under 4 to play in the period, the Wolverines get that back shorthanded. Giveaway at least to a 2-on-1. John Mulally to Trace Elson. That's a goal, his second of the series, 2-1 after 40. Same score with under a minute left. Point shot takes a deflection. It'll go right to the right side. Devin Green coming up with a great save. In fact, it was the game-winning save as Lloydminster holds on for the 2-1 win and the series lead. They try to close it out tonight in Whitecourt. Game time 7:30, and we will have the highlights for you during our late night cast. Meanwhile, the Bonnyville Pontiacs had no problems disposing of the Drayton Valley Thunder in 3 straight. 6-3 was the final. Kyler Hain led the way with a goal and 2 assists, landing him in a 4-way tie for the overall points lead for the playoffs. Dylan McConvey also chipped in with a goal and 2 helpers. Alden Dupuis chipped in with a pair, while Evan Warmington and Eric Donald wrapped up the goal scoring. Now to the Lloydminster AA Blazers. They needed to go the distance in their best of 3 series, and they advanced to the division finals, making a statement in game number 3. 8-2 was the final. Mason Grabowski led the way with 2 goals and 3 assists. The Blazers will now face Dawson Creek. Game 1 goes Tuesday, March 24th in Lloydminster. Now to playoffs of a different kind, the ACAC Provincial Futsal Championships wrapped up Sunday, and the host Lakeland Rustlers men's and women's teams were both in the finals looking to win gold. And we'll start with the women taking on the Rattlers from Medicine Hat. Second half, but down 3-0 and having a tough time controlling the ball. It will be Katie Lewiniak. She'll find the back of the net. The Rustlers would get shut out in their home gym, but you know what? There is a silver lining as they come up in second place. We'll move on to the men now. They won bronze during soccer provincials. They were hoping for a nice little gold medal around their X this time around in the championship final, taking on Keanu Huskies. Pedro Bianchi's shot takes a deflection, which beats Alex Campos to give them the early lead. Now moving on to the second half, leading 3-2. Rustlers looking for that equalizer. And how about that? We're tied up at 3 apiece. Unfortunately, that's as close as the Rustlers would get. Keanu's Nathan Allenbach scores a beauty of a sliding kick. They'll go on to win by a score of 5-3. Well, the Briar wrapped up in dramatic fashion with Pat Simmons leading Team Canada in victory. And while we often focus on athletes who go on to compete in major competitions such as the Briar and Scotties, we're going to look at a broadcaster who got a start here in the border city. He had dreams of being on TSN, but had to put everything on hold while battling his biggest competition. Claire Hanna has more in this report.
Perseverance, paradigm, and prosperity. The theme behind
From
the
here
1998 version of the Lloydminster
to here.
We are glad you're watching SportsCenter. Come on inside. I'm Brian. That is Tessa. And
Bryan Mudryk might seem like a staple of Canadian TV sports coverage, but the TSN host had humble beginnings in Lloydminster.
It was 1999 that I went to CKSA. I had a practicum, and at NAIT in Edmonton you have to do 4 months. Considering I was from a town of 850 people, I'm like, wow, Lloydminster's so big.
After only 1 month, Mudryk was hired as a full-time reporter.
I had to drive a pretty slick news van. It was a minivan. It was high-end. I think I did a square dancing story.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have donned a square dance.
We were all young kids learning at that time, and it was really cool because we were all just trying to learn the craft and become better at what we were doing.
3 years previously, he had been diagnosed with a form of cancer, Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he beat it. But then, a phone call changed everything.
It was about 5 days before Christmas in 1999, and I was at CKSA, and I got a phone call right before the 6 o'clock show. I was the weather guy at that point, and the doctor said that my cancer had come back, and you have to go back to the hospital.
I still very vividly remember that day and him getting that phone call, because I will never forget the look on his face, knowing that it was something terrible, something that had been said to him on the other end of the phone.
Obviously I had to leave work, and I went back to lacrosse, and I did a stem cell transplant, which was very intensive chemotherapy. I was in isolation for 42 days, and it was tough, one of the darkest times of my life.
He was just a shell of himself sitting in the bed, and I remember at that point, it was hard to look at.
My mom would play my little Newcap tapes of me doing the weather and the agriculture, which was hilarious, to just remind myself what I actually looked like and who I was, instead of this kid in the bed who, 210 pounds and 139 pounds when I left the hospital. I remember going back to Lloyd, and I finished my treatment, and I went on the air still with a bald little head because I wanted to get back to work because it kept my mind off everything else.
Now, if you've ever been to the Lloydminster Golf and Curling Club, you'll notice that Mudryk's name is on this curling banner. But what you might not know is that the sport played a role in his battle against cancer.
When I got the phone call and my cancer had come back, I actually had played on a junior curling team. I was still young enough to curl junior, and so I curled out of the Lloydminster Curling Club, and we qualified for provincials. Our coach in Lloydminster, our curling coach, was Tom McPhee. And I run into Tom all the time now at events like this. He's one of the officials on the ice.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching him on CKSA, and now that he's a big TSN star, I see him lots on TSN, and lots of people I tell, of my friends back home, I say, hey, I coached that guy in juniors,
Mudryk won the battle with cancer and eventually reached his dream of working for TSN. One of his duties is calling the Brier, a bonspiel he once drew inspiration from.
When I was in the hospital sick in '99, it was the '99 Brier was in Edmonton. And I watched 3 draws a day, takes your mind off the chemo and your sickness. So I remember watching that Brier, and it kind of helped get me through and take my mind off things. For me, 2013, full circle, I got to call my first Brier in Edmonton in the booth. So that for me was very surreal. The cancer experience taught me that you're not promised tomorrow, that you have to fight for everything that you got. And in a competitive broadcasting industry, I think it really helped push me to always be my best and to not let anyone take anything away from me.
I'm reporter Bryan Mudryk.
And I think the most important lesson I learned, it makes you realize where I came from and how hard I had to work to get here. And I really respect where I am now, and I appreciate being here a lot more.
Claire Hanna, Newcap Sports.
Thank you for that story, Claire. We're going to move on and talk about something that has been very pleasant to us. The weather definitely warming up, which is good news for golf fans. It's going to get back on the links, even though that there is a love-hate relationship with the game at times. Case in point, Rory McIlroy at this weekend's WGC Cadillac Championship. Don't know what I'm talking about? Well, you just have to watch our Newcap Plays of the Week.
First game is a play for the win, and he scores!
Brad Gushu, this is all he's got. Run back, try, bang the yellow, come back, red onto yellow, spin it back! You kidding me?
What a shot! So it's coming from the hips. The guard, they did, bang, bang!